Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like this is a special one. We're a little bit off calendar. We're a day late, but that means you get even better content. It's Tuesday. We got the Football Scoop Podcast. I'm Scott Russell. We got Zach Barnett, John Bryce, Doug Samuels. You know us. We know you. We love you. We appreciate you listening, playing along. Kudos to Zach and Doug. Won the week in picks, 12-3. JB and I both go 11-4, but that means we slid one game back from Zach. Zach, I feel like, do we just get it in the grave now?
Go ahead. There's no way I lose this. Go right ahead.
Man of the year.
Go right ahead.
It is written. Okay, football was amazing. I thought Boise State, Friday night, I thought Boise State might win by 13 plus. UNLV came out and just battled. UNLV looked amazing. I thought that Barry Odom had his defense so prepared for that game. I don't know if you guys watched the first couple of drives. Boise State had nothing. UNLV was in the backfield at the snap. It was like they knew what Boise State was running. I was incredibly impressed with both teams. Hard-fought victory. And Boise State did what they had to do. They had to just get a dub, and they got it. Any thoughts there, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Doug. The only thing I was going to say was I think it's sad that 2-loss UNLV team is now not going to get into the playoff. Like if they could have beat Syracuse and this was a close game, I think they showed they can go toe to toe with Boise, who's the number one Group of 5 program in the country. It would be fascinating to me to see where they would be without that Syracuse loss.
You know, for me, it was the way that Maddox Madsen stepped up at quarterback for Boise State since UNLV finally found a way to, thus far, most effectively bottle up Ashton Jeanty. And he still went for over $1, but he averaged under 4 yards a carry, probably for the first time since 2022 or something. Who knows how long? Certainly for the first time this year, he averaged under 4 yards per carry. But Maddox Madsen, the quarterback for Boise State, did some nice things with his legs, completed, 18 to 33 passes, something in that range, didn't turn the ball over, made a lot of good decisions and helped will Boise State to that win. And to me, that was the difference. They did enough. Like if you're going into a game against Ashton Jeanty in that offense and you say you're going to hold him to under 4 yards per carry, he didn't have the sort of game-breaking run that he's had characteristic in every single game, then you feel like you're going to have a chance to win. And just to further emphasize the play of Maddox Madsen is he's from just right outside of Salt Lake City. How much does Utah need a quarterback right now?
My takeaway is it was a good night for Boise, but a rough night for Ashton Jeanty's Heisman campaign. As it was 33 carries, 128 yards, 1 touchdown. Not a bad night by any means, but he fell off the statistical pace. He's going to have to put up Barry Sanders type numbers for a running back at Boise State to win the Heisman. And that's already difficult enough to do. And now he's starting to show some wear and tear. So it's just going to be difficult for him to put up the eye-popping Sanders-like numbers and stay healthy enough to do that.
Well, a couple of things. I think he is going to put up the Barry Sanders numbers. He injured I couldn't tell if it was his wrist or whatever on his left side. And you could tell he just wasn't, but he's like, I'm playing, right? He also is a kid who cares way more about winning the games and helping his teammates win than the individual stuff. The kid showed me all sorts of heart, and he got in the end zone when he needed to get in the end zone. I thought he did himself and his family quite proud.
Yeah, I don't think he played poorly by any stretch, but to Zach's point, I do think that it dimmed his Heisman hopes a little bit. But the flip side of that is nobody this weekend stepped up to take those Heisman hopes away from him, except for maybe Shedeur Sanders. So 25 of 30 in Colorado's win. The Buffaloes, they're going to have a hard time getting to the Big 12 championship, but they do have a bunch of home games. He's got an opportunity to keep throwing up big stats. But on a weekend when Nussmeier threw 3 picks and LSU faded, Ashton Jeanty didn't do anything bad to hurt his Heisman chances.
All right, I want to talk about a bunch of top 25 type games Saturday. You mentioned LSU. Let's start there. LSU's up 17-7. They've got the ball. And I said to a friend, I said, if they drive down here, they're going to be up 17. It's feeling pretty good. He throws a pick on the very next play. It's my fault. Nuss throws that first pick, and then Marcel Reed comes in. And you literally could see Brian Kelly go talk to Blake Baker. He's like, so I think they're just going to keep running. Maybe we should adjust the defense. There was no adjustment to be made, and they just couldn't stop Marcel Reed. I found that odd and fascinating. Zach, I know you had some thoughts there. Give me, what'd you see?
Yeah, Marcel Reed has to set the college football record for biggest impact by a backup quarterback in a game where he threw 2 passes. He was 2 of 2 for 70 yards through the air, 9 carries, 62 yards, 3 touchdowns. Completely pantsed LSU's defense, and they had no answer. Provided the spark that the defense needed to melt down LSU's offense and special teams, and got the Kyle Field crowd cranking. I mean, he was the MVP of the weekend in terms of game impact for everyone, and completely changed the course of A&M season. And now the question is, can you go back to Connor Wegman, or is Marcel Reed your guy? So far, Mike Elko has pushed the right buttons all the way around. We'll have to continue to monitor that moving forward. Nussmeier just – I remember the interception, the A&M cornerback whose name escapes me at this point. He said, he was like, I know he sees me. He's not about to throw this ball. And then he throws it and he picks it. And it was the play where the other LSU receiver scramble drill was running back to him. It was wide open for a first down. And if Nuss looks here, he sees him, but he just locked on through a pick. And it was that kind of second half for LSU.
Hey, Doug, Texas A&M's in the SEC. You know which teams they don't play this year? They don't play Georgia. They don't play Alabama. They don't play Ole Miss.
They also don't play Tennessee.
They don't play Tennessee. I mean,
yeah, they've got at South Carolina. They play New Mexico State, at Auburn, and then they end with Texas, which I saw the prices for that game are astronomical.
Absolutely awesome and stupid and amazing, and I love it. JB, give me some thoughts on A&M. How's it play out from here?
Kudos to Colin Klein for being able to manage that quarterback situation very deftly for the Aggies, and then Mike Elko for having the pulse of that team. And overall, I think the key is that Texas A&M did not panic in that contest, even when it was 17-7, and LSU seemed in control of that. The Aggies didn't panic and just go to Marcel Reed and then scrap their identity. They turned to Marcel Reed, but they still turned to Marcel Reed and asked him to operate within the confines of his toolbox and what his strengths are. So I thought that was really key. A&M is really, really close to locking up a spot in the SEC championship game. But look, at South Carolina this weekend, the Gamecocks have got to find a couple more wins to get bowl eligibility. We've seen them be good enough to win at a bad Oklahoma team. South Carolina, as I studied their schedule this morning, they're 7 points from being a 6-1 team. They should have beaten LSU at home. They should have beaten Alabama on the road. So that's a tough test. We know a lot about Texas A&M, and they're very quality football team. I think you would put Elko at the top of the list for SEC Coach of the Year. But I still think there's a little bit more to know if they have to make a quarterback switch this week, or if South Carolina does a much better job preparing for the possibility of both Wigman and Marcel Reed. And that's probably what shocked me the most, is that as much respect as we all have for Blake Baker, some LSU kids said after the game, yeah, we didn't expect Marcel Reed at all. Wait, what? Like it's not like he hadn't played this year and you didn't expect him. Like, it'd just been a couple of weeks.
And they just didn't adjust. I found everything about that strange. All right, let's stay in Texas. Zach, we talked about Vanderbilt, I don't know, trap game, like a must win for Texas. I mean, all these things. Texas, they were enough, but didn't excite me.
Yeah, I think it wasn't as close as the 27-24 final score, although that was the final score. Vanderbilt scored first. Texas answered and then never trailed after that. very easily. Could have been a 34-17 type final. They did a good job of bottling Diego Pavia. He praised their defensive line. Quinn Ewers was better. Was he All-American type? No. Threw a couple picks on batted balls. Ran the ball well, not great. The bye week's coming at a good time. They have an improving Florida team at Arkansas. That's not going to be an easy game. Kentucky, and then as we mentioned at A&M, 4 winnable games, but also losable games. They need to improve. They need to get things right offensively.
Texas A&M just has so much potential. I hope we get there in a great spot with a lot on the line.
If we do, there's not a human being alive who's experienced the intensity that's going to be in Kyle Field, because it's never happened before. Especially if both teams went out.
I love it. I love it. All right. So when you said that, it immediately made me think Big Ten, the big game, Ohio State and Michigan. So let's talk Ohio State. Ohio State struggled with Nebraska. Matt Rule was like, "Hey, I'm seeing it in our locker room." Okay, you gotta win the game. Okay, all right. So Doug, give me some thoughts. Ohio State, Nebraska.
Yeah, I think the play that really tipped that game was the targeting call that ended up not really being a targeting call. And Ryan Day lost his marbles there on the sideline and got a sideline warning, which he essentially bumped into the referee, or the referee was standing behind him and he bumped into him. But the player gets ejected. Ohio State ended up jumping on that ball, but it ended up not being a fumble because of the targeting. So, Ohio State has continued to prove that they are human, and they're not a big, bad, scary 10-win team. They're a very human 10-win or a top 10 team. And Nebraska, I thought was really impressive, coming off a week where they were absolutely embarrassed by Indiana. And as we continue to find out week after week, Indiana is absolutely the real deal. I mean, they continue to be. They haven't been down, and it's not like they've scored. They've taken the ball and scored on every first possession. I think Washington had 2 possessions, 2 chances to score and take the lead on Indiana, who hasn't been down all season, and they didn't. So, Ohio State continues to prove that they are human, and that year-end matchup against Michigan isn't what it has been in years past for sure, but it is an absolutely have to win game for Ryan Day, because the chirps are getting louder and louder that he struggles in the big games.
So far it seems like the whole is less than the sum of the parts for Ohio State. We saw that against Oregon, against Nebraska. Indiana is going to be a tough game. Obviously, they got to go to Penn State. And that's the issue, is it a really good team? Yeah. Is it as good as the collective playing and coaching talent? Right now, no.
Yeah, I was frankly stunned that Ryan Day didn't get actual penalties, if not ejected from that game. His behavior out on the field was some of the craziest that I've seen out of a head coach. You said it, Doug. It was temper tantrum-esque. But what it does, as we talk about Ohio State, Michigan at the end of the year, no, it sets up the stakes this week for what I believe is very firmly the biggest game in James Franklin's coaching career, and that is Penn State, Ohio State this week. And I think this is it. I think this is by far the single largest game that James Franklin will have ever coached in. And I know that he's won a Big Ten there, and he's gone to the Cotton Bowl, and he's done some other things. This is the biggest game of James Franklin's career, period, point blank, because Penn State, to its credit, weathered the storm against Bucky the Badger in Wisconsin, weathered that fake punt, or not really a fake punt, just a busted play where they were going to block the punt, and the whiskey punter showed he's got some wiggle too, and got the first down, a fun play in college football. Now we're waiting to see the status of Drew Aller, the Penn State quarterback, but because Ohio State did enough, and because Penn State did enough on the road, now we see the biggest game of the James Franklin era anywhere. And it also is important in Doug's bold prediction for the potential of up to 4 Big Ten teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, your point, with Penn State, they've got this one, and then the remaining four thereafter are a lot softer. I hate to say it, but they are. They're Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland. So like this is their big shot, right? So Doug's bold prediction starting the season was 4 Big Ten teams in the playoff. So right now, we're looking at Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana. Pretty darn strong shot those 4 get in. Unless one of them collapses. Illinois is right there. Illinois went up to Autzen, right? And, Oregon was the better team that day by a good bit.
Yeah, Illinois is not going to be a playoff team. So
Yeah.
they're solid. What Bielema's
Yeah.
done is really impressive. No surprise that Illinois is winning in the trenches and overall getting really nice play on a week-to-week basis from Luke Altmaier, not this past weekend. But Illinois will not be a playoff team.
Yeah, and on Indiana, I don't think we need to go chapter and verse on the Washington game, but I did see that Brian Fremeno, I mispronouncing his name, is one of the analytics guys I really respect, said that if you took all preseason projections out and just looked at what's happened on the field this season, Indiana would be his number 3 team in the country.
Yeah, now I was just going to say there's a question mark there. Taven Jackson was nice. I thought that maybe the best coaching job that Indiana did all year was just the way it helped Taven Jackson manage that game and manage his first start. And to Doug's point on Washington, they not only had a couple of opportunities, I think twice they got past midfield, and Indiana found a way to stiffen and keep them from taking a lead and giving Indiana its first deficit of the year. So the way that they prepared Taven Jackson, the way he operated in that game, he'll be so much better for it moving forward. But for Indiana to continue this truly unprecedented season, they need the Rourke kid back sooner rather than later.
Assuming, other than the big games where they're playing each other, like we were talking about, Penn State's got Ohio State, right? And then it's a little bit softer, Purdue and Washington, Maryland and Minnesota. Oregon, is at Michigan, and then they kind of got the same. They got Washington in there, and they got some other, nothing. It's Ohio State's kind of the one that's at risk, right?
Yeah,
you got a battle with Penn State, you got a battle with Indiana, you got Michigan. Ohio State's the one that might.
Yeah. Ohio State is the one that. Look, if Penn State wins this weekend, then I think you start planning on Penn State being one of the 2 participants in the Big Ten championship game and setting itself up to probably be no worse than a 6 or 7 seed, even if it was to lose the Big Ten championship game. But if Ohio State loses this weekend with the specter of the Buckeyes' remaining schedule, then, yeah, you start worrying about you have to win every game and the pressure mounts every game to continue to be a playoff team. Because if you get to 2 regular season losses and you have Indiana and Penn State in the Big Ten championship, then you've lost control of your own destiny at that point. And you're probably still in as a 10-2 Ohio State team, but you don't know what else is going to happen around the SEC, or is the ACC going to continue to have both Miami and Clemson up at the top, but then also SMU and Pitt lurking right behind there. So, yeah, that's why biggest game by far of James Franklin's career this week, but it's no slouch game for Ryan Day either.
And to your point, Scott, the Big Ten has 5 ranked teams, Illinois hanging on at number 24. Ohio State obviously lost at Oregon. They at Penn State, home against Indiana. Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, none of them play each other. So those teams really need that. Penn State, Indiana need to beat Ohio State, because outside of that, they're not going to have a ranked win all season long.
Yeah. Wisconsin's in there as a possible, wrecker. Wisconsin can mess some things up at the end, but yeah, I hear you. And Wisconsin's capable of that.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Miami continues to do what they should be doing. And that's a good quality win. Not stressed too much. Zach, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it had to be super satisfying for Mario Cristobal to get on the podium afterwards and basically tell recruits, you see how bad Florida and Florida State are, Sunshine State recruits. If you want to play for championships, why don't you come down here to South Beach? Satisfying win for them. Again, this is a team that could go 12-0 and not even face a ranked team all season long. They get Duke, hard luck loser to SMU this past week. They get them at home. At Georgia Tech, home against Wake Forest, at Syracuse. So we're setting up a potential train wreck in the ACC where we think that maybe meet an undefeated Clemson or maybe meet an undefeated in-conference play SMU. Or depending on how tiebreakers work, it's possible Miami goes 12-0, doesn't play a ranked team all season long, and doesn't make the ACC championship game. We can't rule that out.
College football, crazy. That's nuts.
Wow. And the other thing on Miami, I saw Max Olson had this stat that Miami has gone 3-and-out like 3 times in 90 drives all season long or something like that. Like consistency of their offense under Cam Ward. Cam Ward's not getting enough love as a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Where Miami has gotten is where Mario Cristobal needed to get them. He has 2 really good coordinators, and he's letting them do their work. Shannon Dawson, Lance Guidry, go do your thing. And Mario can be the Ed Orgeron guy, right? Hey, bring them together. We need you at this play right here, right now, baby. And that's where Mario has the potential to be the best and just be your dogged recruiter out there just doing what he does. So Miami's in a good spot. I wouldn't want to have to play them. All right, Notre Dame. JB and I spoke. JB's like, Notre Dame's going to win this game pretty handily. And I was like, man, I don't know. I feel like Navy's got a shot. I said, Army is better than Navy. I said, I don't know. I think Navy might have a shot. I went with Navy. Oh, no. I regret that pretty early. Sorry.
Well, look, I felt Notre Dame was the superior team on both sides of the ball, but I didn't foresee Navy having 6 turnovers, and basically none of the 6 was forced. I mean, the midshipmen picked the absolute worst time against the best opponent to have their worst game, and that's exactly what unfolded. And it was an early game, and so that didn't give the Navy crowd a chance to get into it whatsoever there at MetLife Stadium. And then Notre Dame just rolled on into its bye and did what it had to do. What Al Golden is doing, I think, is underappreciated. You make a great point on Cam Ward and what he's doing for Miami, Zach. And I think that it's similar for what Golden is doing, coordinating the Notre Dame defense. The number of 1 touchdown or 0 offensive touchdown games that they've produced in the last 2 seasons as he's further entrenched his system there in South Bend is really remarkable. And they're up there now. They're only averaging giving up like 12 points per game. And again, a couple of those are offensive giveaways or a special team score here and there. So Al Golden, to me, right now is the best defensive coordinator in college football. And he is the reason that Notre Dame is 7-1, 2/3 of the way through its schedule, and has an overall very friendly November to try and finish out 11-1, no conference championship game. That loss to Northern Illinois will keep Notre Dame from having any shot at being the number 5 seed in the CFP. But I think if Notre Dame wins out, it's got a chance to be in that 6-7 range and hosting a college football playoff game.
I mean, if Notre Dame hadn't lost to Northern Illinois, they'd have an argument to be the number 1 team in the country. They're playing really well. They've got a good resume. That win at A&M is aging fantastically. That's just what a blemish right there. That's a piece of spinach on the tooth of prime Kate Upton right there.
Yeah, it's that's a disastrous loss. But you can't be a 28.5 point favorite at home and lose to a Northern Illinois team that we've seen since then is very much middle of the pack in the MAC. And you would see Notre Dame probably getting some love as a top 3 team had it be sitting here 8-0 undefeated and all that. But even if it did, the highest under this iteration of the playoffs it could ever be is the number 5 seed. That was the goal, because the 5 seed gives you what you expect to be an inviting 5-12 matchup, and then a chance to win and play the 4th seed somewhere in a neutral site bowl game, and that's gone by the wayside for the Irish. And but they can still be in that 6-7 range, host, have a chance to win, and then go from there. But a lot of 7-1 seemed so far off for Notre Dame after they were 1-1. So kudos to Marcus Freeman and company for getting it done. Still a lot of warts, still a lot of growth to go on the offensive side of the ball. I will note, I found this stat last week. Of all the teams in the top 12 going into this past weekend's action, Notre Dame is starting the most freshmen and redshirt freshmen of any top 12 team in the country. So, and it was a significant number. It was like a total of 12 freshmen in the starting lineup and 2 deep for Notre Dame on offense and defense.
Let's ACC again. Pitt and SMU. Pitt handled Syracuse. I mean, they did. Pitt's undefeated. Quarterback, I think he got a little dinged up. Pitt is going to be interesting to see how they close out the season. SMU is going to lose that game to Duke. Duke's got a chip shot field goal to win it at the end of regulation. 30-yarder, and the SMU guy jumps center or guard tackle gap, jumps in, blocks it rather easily, to be honest. First play, SMU comes out, touchdown. Duke comes back with a nice little play, scores themselves, and then they go for 2 to win, and they actually had the guy, and it just didn't work out. It's the way the football bounces.
Yeah.
A horrible win for SMU. Rhett Lashley said multiple times that they didn't deserve the win. And also a great win for SMU. To beat a 6-1 team when you're 0-6 turnovers is incredibly difficult. It's also difficult to win 3 straight conference road games. There was a bye week in there, but they went to Stanford and won, went to Louisville and won, and then went to Duke and won. 3 road games in a row, which should never really happen in a conference game. You shouldn't have 3 straight road games. SMU had it, and they won all of them. Now they earn the right to have the biggest home game in my lifetime this coming weekend.
Yeah, biggest home game since the Pony Express days.
Yeah, Pony Express. Come on, baby. In my lifetime.
But, Pitt. We've talked all season long about the Panthers' revitalized offense under Cade Bell with Eli Holstein running that offense, and certainly his health moving forward is critical to Pitt's kind of miracle bounce back season as well. But the Pitt defense showed up in a big way and buried Kyle McCord in that Syracuse offense. And that game was over in the first quarter. And then it was just off to the races after that. So we had seen the Pitt offense kind of rescue the Pitt defense a few times. And this game, the Pitt defense with multiple pick sixes and the way that it tilted the field really made life easy for the Pitt offense.
I love the Nate Bargatze meme that's going around the world these days. The Atlantic Coast Conference, and all the teams will be on the Eastern Seaboard.
The Big Ten, so it has 10 teams, right?
It's incredible.
Yeah,
that guy's incredible.
Shout out Nate Bargatze, a native Tennessean like yours truly.
On our preview podcast, I asked the question, why is South Alabama like an 8-point favorite over Louisiana Monroe? Well, because they won by about 90. So Vegas is just better than us. So when you see that line, you go, "This doesn't make any sense." Go with Vegas. Go with Vegas. Go with Vegas.
Here's a bigger question: How did that South Alabama team lose to Butch Jones and Arkansas State the week before, or whatever it was? That's unbelievable to me. Like I'm not. You asked that question. I said, well, because I think South Alabama still has the better roster. It's the deeper roster, and South Alabama's at home. That's why Vegas has South Alabama favored. I still haven't figured out how South Alabama lost in Butch Jonesboro, Arkansas.
All right. Any other games we need to touch on, guys? Lane got a win over Oklahoma. Anything else to be said there?
Oklahoma didn't. They look competent. As I said on Thursday, this game is about finding the bottom for Oklahoma, and they found the bottom, and they've left rock bottom behind. You would think against South Carolina. So now they get Maine this week. They'll win that one. Now the season really boils down to winning at Missouri in a couple weeks. They do that. At least it's not a complete total flaming wreck. It's still a wreck, but at least the wreck's not on fire.
To me, a couple of quick shouts out to K-State. We thought that they would win that game. They would probably handle the Jayhawks. They did not handle them, but the Wildcats found a way to win that one by a couple of points. A big bounce back from Alabama. I think we said on the preview pod last week, I like Alabama to win this game by 3+ touchdowns. And Zach said, I'm picking Alabama. I don't know about that. And then thirdly, BYU. Wow. BYU, Kalani Sitake, we got to talk more about him for National Coach of the Year, not just Big 12 Coach of the Year. But what they did, they didn't put the Gus Bus in the garage. They took it to the junkyard and just left it there for scraps. And we've seen the fallout from that. But now they get an open date before playing a Utah team that will truly try to just salvage its season in the renewal of the BYU-Utah rivalry. And then after that, I think the Cougs get Kansas at home and then Arizona State. One more game in there, but BYU is about one more win away from all but clinching a spot in the Big 12 championship, and they could potentially be a playoff participant in their second year ever of being a Big 12 team.
Yeah, never mind. I was going to say something, but then I realized I was wrong. So go ahead.
They're at Utah. Then they get Kansas at home. And then they're at Arizona State, and they finish out with Houston. Houston has found a way to mess up a couple of things. They beat Houston. I'm sorry, they beat Houston, beat Utah. So I mean, there's potential there, but BYU should win out if they stay healthy. Should.
Yeah. No.
I think.
Look. I'm so sorry, Doug. Go ahead, buddy.
No. You go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say was, absolutely the pride of Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley in that Utah program. And the game is at Rice-Eccles Stadium on November the 9th. So that will be it for me. If BYU wins that game, I do believe BYU will go undefeated. But I think even though Utah offense has set college football back decades this year, they'll have something for the Cougars that night. Now, the floor is yours, Doug. I apologize.
Hey, for me, I had the Michigan State game on full screen, no quad box treatment for that one. And actually, I thought Michigan State played well enough, largely for the majority of the game to win. But the defending national champs keep their bowl hopes alive by going to 5-3 instead of slipping to 4-4. So. There's always some bad blood and the scuffle afterwards, and did this happen or that happen, but none of that really matters to me. To me, Aiden Childs, I think, is going to be a very, very good quarterback for the Spartans. Very young right now and is making some really costly mistakes with the ball in his hand. So they'll get better, but it's good to see Michigan State offensively return to kind of what they were under Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah, it's fun to see Jonathan Smith implement his vision for the Sparty program. And I might not have won the picks last week, but I know at least one of us picked Connor Stallions U to win that game.
That's true. And also Jake Dickert improves to 7-1 at Washington State, I think. And
they're going to be 11-1.
Yeah, that's going to continue to be talked about these next few weeks.
Only loss was Boise State, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan so needed this game for bowl eligibility, which is kind of hilarious to even say. But, I mean, they've got Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, and Northwestern. So let's just assume Michigan can handle Northwestern, which is an assumption. That's the only way they get to bowl eligibility, unless they beat Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State.
And, I mean, it's been a revolving door at quarterback for them. Just yesterday, Jack Tuttle announced he's retiring due to concussions. Hate to see that. Wish nothing but the best for that young man.
Amen.
Yeah. Tough deal to see Tuttle this week after Grayson McCall last week from NC State. Bad deal, but also good that these people have the right support from family and friends to make the best long-term decisions for their health.
All right, everybody. We are done. Thank you for joining us. If you stayed this long, send us a note. Let us know you're with us till the end. It's always fun.
I'm still here. Oh.
Thank you, JB. Zach, we're going to figure out how to get that thing engraved. Man of the year. It's got to be coming Zach's way. It's got to happen one of these years. We feel like this could be the year, Zach. We believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, we'll see you soon.